Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. This is going to be game 2 between Semih and Kudos. Kudos up 2 games because he gets the 1 win running in from the upper bracket, and thus far looking pretty strong. Blue Zerg upper right hand corner, bottom left hand corner, got Semih starting as the white Protoss. This is going to be, I think I already mentioned this is on Deja Vu, repeating myself. Or do I just have Deja Vu? You see how I recovered that one? That's some pro commentating right there, folks. That is the high quality stuff you come to this channel for. Anyhow, I will say what we learned from Semih versus Striker is when the one thing I actually appreciate about Semih overall is he will find ways to win. He, especially in these tournament situations, which is part of the reason he tends to hit well above his weight class, is he will play you heads up. He will also, when heads up isn't working, turn on cheese, which we saw in the versus Striker game. I am expecting something similar versus Kudos, simply because I would put, again, I feel like Semih's in tier 10, maybe tier 11, honestly, but like peeking into tier 11, he's well on his way that direction. But Kudos, I would argue, is not that far behind Striker in tier 12. And honestly, I feel like when people are starting, I think I mentioned this in the previous cast as well, but when people start talking about really, really strong North American Zergs, I definitely think he needs to be on the short list there, but with Crossy and Striker and Hawk. Crossy, Striker, Hawk, Kudos. Those should be the 4 people should mention overall. In fact, it would be fun to see. Anyway, I digress. Forge on the front for Semih is sending out a double scout to try to confirm whether it is... was this Overpool? Looks like this was Overpool. This is cross spawn, so Semih should be able to get away with the Nexus before Forge. Kudos waiting for an 11 hatch, or sorry, a hatch on 11, not an 11 hatch in this scenario, is going to be able to get it down. Semih just missing the opportunity right there with the scout overall, but he knows from that timing, the lack of any sort of mutation on that hatchery, that it is in fact a pool opener. He's got the 2 Zerglings being built right there. Going to go ahead and drop that Nexus behind and wait for the cannon positioning. This is a pretty wide choke, and I have seen for some reason my brain is bringing up Zergling run-bys, not just against Terran, but oftentimes against Protoss on this map in particular. There's just a wide field of exposure right there, so I'll be interested to see if Kudos tries to exploit that. I'm also wondering if Kudos is just going to go more for hatchery, or I should say layer opening to 4 hatchery. Semih is trailing that. Oh, almost was there to disturb that hatchery at the 3 o'clock location. The Zergling's going to be right there to hop on things. The drone wandering up sees the cannon, is going to back off, so at least has the scout. The Zergling's going to reposition to try to engage the probe before it can make its way home, or to get additional scouting information. We do have that extractor being planted. The timing of it a little bit slower than faster, so I think this is 3. I think I do believe the extractor went up before the 3rd hatch. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it was like a 2.0. I don't feel like it was a sub 230 gas overall. Probe is maintaining a lot of health, but it's a distance away from Kudos to be able to get any sort of scouting information. Semih's natural expansion up. He's grabbing his gas. It looks like he is just playing heads up with a Forge opener right this second. Part of the challenge of this is he's really been boxed out of a scout, and he really needs to pull that scout around to get an idea of the drone saturation and to get some idea of what Kudos is up to. It looks like Kudos is teching up to lair right this second, and he lost that first probe scout. A Zealot, however, has rapidly made it on the field. However, these Zerglings are in time where they don't have Zergling speed, but without a Zealot there to protect, with a few more Zerglings in position, they might shoot that gap. In fact, if they want to group up, they could probably shoot that lower gap. I don't know that Kudos is going to expend this. I don't think he wants to expend the Zerglings, but that was a possibility, I believe, to get a Zergling or 2 in there if you wanted to get some disruption in scouting. Cybernetic score up, by the way. The Zealot is managing to get to the 3 o'clock location. Looks like it briefly was thinking about hiding. This is a pretty wide spawn back here, and it looks like the drone is immediately going to be able to pull away. Second Zealot making its way out on the map. I'm not sure if that's been spotted by Kudos or not, but the Zealot, seeing the number of Zerglings out in the field, is, I think it's trying to get out of Overlord view here while this Zealot's occupied, and yeah, see, it's a wider gap. And therefore the Zealot quickly being dispatched. The Zealot kind of non-committal midfield here. staying in Overlord view, but not pressing towards the front. We do see a large amount of Zerglings that have been constructed. Also a pretty good trade for Kudos in the midst of that, and still building Zerglings. Building a lot of Zerglings and drones in the space of this. Layer is up. Fourth hatchery is planted. The Spire and going for, so just skipping Spire going into Hydralisk Den in the space of this. This is presuming no double Stargate, and we have a robotics for Semih. Interesting play. Interesting play, and that's not going to get scouted. So +1, this might be Corsair Reaver out of Semih, which I like the decision to do it at cross position, by the way. But this is, we'll see how this plays out. Oftentimes you have to be very, very careful. And actually, this is going to play out really, really well for Semih, because the Spire is nowhere to be seen. And it looks like Kudos just is trying to skip Spire altogether and transition to 5 hatchery. I'm wondering if Semih saw that previously and calculated that and is opting for, but that will be of assistance. The Hydralisks will be in significant numbers, but is the Forge not spinning? That should be a big indicator actually for Kudos, is that's Forge is just now starting +1 weapons. Now it's possible he might be like, ah, Semih's nervous and he missed that +1 weapons, which is, I don't think the case. I think he was saving that gas to speed up that robotics, speed up +1 weapons on the Corsair, etc., etc. But this will be interesting. And I do believe this is going to be, we don't see a support bay drop as of yet, actually. Now that there it is, actually, it's on the lower corner. I take it back. I take it back. Corsair scouting across, does see the Hydralisk Den. Second extractor now in play, is going to get what damage it can against the Overlords. And we do have a good number of Hydralisks in position. 3 Corsairs in field. They're unopposed if they can maneuver well against these Hydralisks. And actually 4 Corsair with the Reaver is a pretty solid number if you're not having to deal with Scourge. Reaver now being built. And also if Kudos is trying to play it light and drone heavily, which he did try to do in previous matches, with that Zerg greed, which is very, very important. Ooh, Corsair taking a little bit of free damage right there. But the Hydralisk number is not immense at any location. So Semih, theoretically, with Reavers moving out in the field rapidly, before Kudos is able to really capitalize and get a lot of that economy rolling, is he going to go with 1 or 2? He's got the first Reaver out. More Corsairs making the way. Kudos is starting to clog the front. And he'll be okay, actually, with this Reaver behind this, so might wait for the second. And Kudos wanting to, wow, actually going for a bust. This is the worst possible scenario for Kudos, because that Reaver is going to shred so much of this, particularly with the Zealot support to clog things. And there's also, I want to point out that Semih built this front. Usually you go for more of a blockade and you leave fewer gaps, but Semih intentionally left a larger gap along the southern edge to allow the Reaver Scarabs to push through, knowing it might be utilized by the defense. By the way, not enough cannons, so the Hydralisks are getting through. If they pick up that Reaver, that would be huge. Man, picked off the Reaver, that's enormous. This, the Corsair being very active behind this, by the way, and getting a good amount of Overlord kills. The Gateway also dropping. And this hurts Semih a lot, because with this build, being able to keep every bit of, you're playing very resource and tech heavy. But I think Semih might pull this off, because he's kept Kudos in the red. More Overlords are dying. He's hovering around 39 supply. Are there more Overlords at spawn? Yeah, and they're nowhere near Overlord speed. Semih should be able to defend this front with that additional Reaver out without too much trouble. So these Reavers are going to feel absolutely free to just devastate this front. Kudos going for a persistent attack. Handful of Dragoons there to provide additional buffering for the Reavers. Second Reaver out on the front. Kudos somehow still sniping this, but gonna GG right there, recognizing that he just wasn't going to be able to bust the front. So Semih, with a creative build here, able to pull out game 2 to go up a score. He's still got a lot more work to do, but he's on the scoreboard. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.